here. Welcome, Tia Clark. You're from South Carolina, but where are you right now?
Where am I right now? Right
Yeah,
now, I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana.
that's
I'm in
awesome.
the Big Easy.
And I am here in Palmer, Alaska. It's awesome to be talking to you across the country. So we're doing a interview here for Ocean Pulse, which is a blog that our team puts out. It goes out to about 2,500 different seafood professionals, people that harvest fish, sell fish, eat fish, and shellfish, all the things. Um, and we like to talk to people about what kinds of policies affect them in fisheries management, how the environment affects their life and work on the water, or in the store or wherever they are interacting with this resource. And part of the conversation we're having right now is about equity in fisheries. And that's for us, that's looking at who participates in U.S. fisheries, who gets to benefit from these incredible resources, how is it supporting community wellness and community relationships with the water. And part of looking at that for us is talking to people that are doing really incredible work on the water and really building relationships and growing community around these marine resources. And that's why we invited you to be here with us. So thanks, Tia, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to give people a little idea of what you do. So I would love if you could just describe your business for us and what do you do on the water?
Yeah. My name's Tia. I go by the Casual Crabber, and I host Casual Crabbing with Tia, or on the Airbnb experience platform, it's called Let's Go Crabbing. And what it is, it's kind of hard. I mean, I guess I answer this question a lot, right? Yeah, I teach people how to crab. That's one way of saying it. Or you can say that I help people build an unbreakable bond with the water. I am a crabber and I teach people about crabbing for a living, but I just did it for the first time less than 6 years ago. And I went through a full body, like physical, mental transformation when I built my bond next to the water. So I take people to the water every day, no boats. It's a land-based experience. It's another thing everybody thinks about boats whenever they hear anything about crabbing or water. They instantly think about a boat. And that's just society. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's where everybody's brains go. So I'm trying to teach people that you don't have to have a boat. You don't have to have money. Like you can have just as much fun and you can just really have this life-changing bond with the natural resources that are around us.
Yeah. So you're teaching that the waterfront's for everybody. It's right there for you.
For everyone. I mean, I was
Yeah.
surrounded by it. I was surrounded by it for 37 years before I had my chance to enjoy it or to, I don't know. I don't even know how to really explain what happened to me that day on the water, but
Yeah.
it took 37 years before that happened.
Yeah.
And it was just very powerful.
Could you tell me a little bit more about your journey going from, somebody that lived in proximity to the water to someone that now spends, I think, the majority of your time interacting with that space?
Yeah,
What brought you
absolutely.
there?
Uh, a lot of kicking and screaming. A lot of kicking and screaming. So I was in the food and beverage industry, lived a typical food and beverage life, work all night, sleep all day, kind of lifestyle. I was almost 150 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I quit smoking cigarettes. And this was before I even thought about the water or anything, but I quit smoking cigarettes, and being a Black woman, almost 40, being overweight, my health just started declining and spinning out of control. And um, a holistic doctor is finally who was able to help me. And when she was finally able to get my hives and my inflammation to kind of calm down and I could see straight, she suggested that I find a way to be physically active. And she said, just try to do it for 20 minutes a day, whatever it is. And I had felt so bad for so long that when she said that, I really didn't even listen to her or really think that I was going to do anything about it. And I ran into some family because we had a family wedding, and I ran into one of my old cousins, and I was telling him about what was going on with me. And he said, come crabbing with me, because I was like, this lady wants me to get active now, blah, blah, blah. And he said, come crabbing. That's a way you can get active. And I went the next day after that wedding with him to this place and had this experience that, I mean, my mom says, that's my spiritual time. She said, that's your time. My mom says, that's your time with God. She would say that because I was out on the water and having this, I was just calling her. This is my mom who lives there, grew up in the heart of the city. And I'm like, oh my God, I went to the water this morning and I saw this and the sun came up and I caught this thing and I learned this. And I'm just like rambling about whatever's happening to me and showing her these pictures, and she's moved by it. And it it really just moves me. Like when he took me there, we caught all the food that I grew up eating. We caught crabs, shrimp, and fish all in like a matter of minutes. And it was really like somebody had me by my ankles and they were shaking me upside down because my world was shook. I mean, I'm Gullah Geechee. Like I grew up, my family grew up in the heart of downtown Charleston, living off the land. And like one of my uncles was like the fisherman in the neighborhood where everybody would come to his truck and he would have the scale on the back, like, but something happened where I didn't know, I don't know how, that all this stuff was right around me in the water. Like I'm eating all this food. It's just like not making that connection, And that day with that day on the water with my cousin, I made that connection in ways that truly just moved me to where I wanted to keep doing that and having that experience over and over again. So I went crabbing every day. And I wanted to go crabbing. I wanted to be next to that water because I didn't even crab every day. I would go and take a cast net. Like part of the experience, I teach people to throw a cast net because for me, that's what helped me build my bond. Like some days when I would go there, I wouldn't even put a crab basket in, but I would take this 7-foot cast net and throw it for 2 hours continuously, almost like in the same spot. But every time I pull it up, you have no idea what's coming up, So for me, with no relationship to the water, it could be something as simple as like a bait fish, but catching 6 or 7 of them at a time was just like, oh my God, like I don't know what it was doing, but it was like I had to do it over and over and over again. And so I kept doing that and posting to social media just about what was happening to me on my health journey. And one of my buddies came up with the name Casual Crabbing with Tia, started a social media page. People started messaging me. All I knew was food and beverage life. So as those people were asking to come, they wanted to come experience it because it was like these beautiful sunrises and like these beautiful crabs or whatever is going on. And they're like, hey, do you want somebody to come hang out with you for like an hour? Do you mind if I come hang out for an hour? And I just told them all no, because I didn't, food and beverage, dark bars, come on. People in the equation, it's going downhill, right? So I was like, no, just flat out no. Every time they would ask, I'd be like, no, you are not coming in. I wanted to protect that space. I never had a space that I felt just so free. You know what I mean? It's like judgment free. I was having physical sensations when I went to that spot. Like when I was talking to my counselor, like I was really having something happen to me. And so I wanted to protect that. And but then I decided to let one of my food and beverage buddies bring his brothers, because my buddy Peter was like, come on, like, please, my brothers are coming down. And I'm like, I was like, Peter, I'm not taking nobody. And he's begging me. And finally I was like, all right. So I took Peter's brothers out. And honestly, I thought I was scared because it was new. Like, first of all, I'm a woman. My first booking was me and 4 men next to the water that showed up with their own fishing poles. Like, I felt like, here we go. This is going to be a few hours of me just trying to explain myself over and over again. I don't know what I thought it was going to be like, but it was the exact opposite of whatever I had made up in my head, because it was just this experience that was very moving to them. Like one of them was like tearing up, like telling me how much of a great day, how he needed that day with his brothers. And then like I pack up and go home and I think this is over. And then a couple hours later, I get tagged in a post on Facebook and it's them with the crabs with their family eating it around the table, you know? And I was just like, but for me though, I thought experience over. See you guys later, like it's over, you know? And I'm like, man, this is hours later. And then the next day he's like, hey, thank you again for that experience. Like we went back, showed the family pictures, ate the food with the family. Like, I don't know. It was just like kind of eye-opening a little to me, but I still didn't want to, do the business. And then someone sent me a link through the Facebook page that I did not create, that Robbie did. And this other friend, Becky, was like, hey, check this out. Airbnb is starting this thing in Charleston. And they send me a link for Airbnb experiences. And my wife submitted it and they accepted it within a couple of weeks. And after hosting my first experience within just a few months, like less than 4 months, Airbnb had flown me to San Francisco with 3 other people from around the world and told me I was one of the top 4 hosts in their market. And I'd never
That's
taken an
wild.
experience. And tell me about it, right? I'm like a geeky girl from downtown Charleston. And I'm like, they're like, come over here. And I'm like, I get there and I'm so excited to be there. And they stand me next to these people. And one of the guys, the last guy that I had to follow, he was saving African penguins that lived on a rock outside his shark conservation center in South Africa. And so they put me, the crabbing girl, that was like, hey, I catch blue crabs, thank y'all. Like, I didn't know what to say, but it was moving. And believe it or not, it's almost 6 years later and I'm still doing interviews and podcasts. But now, like, you think, like, I just told you all that, right? So it's a setup of like this person that now is discovered themselves and their bond with the water. But what it also did was put me into this just organic stewardship, conservation and stewardship, because now I want to crab every day. I want to teach people about this every day. Well, I can't get that just by taking people to the water and taking them crabbing every day. That's not how I'm going to achieve that goal, So everybody that comes out with me purchases their own saltwater license, which goes to the Department of Natural Resources. And then we team up with the SCORE program, which is the South Carolina Oyster Recycling and Enhancement Program. And now, just by people taking my experience, they're helping us because we are actively participating in the shoreline restoration, where we're building manufactured wire reefs. We host a once a month casual crabbing volunteer event that people from the community can come with us and help us build these MWRs and help us go and deploy it. That's the Department of Natural Resources. It's an amazing department. It's an amazing group of people wherever you live, wherever your Department of Natural Resources is, but it's still a state-run site. So like right now, the world that we live in, a lot of action is done through social media and they don't really have a social media presence. So I kind of use my platform to get out the information about recycling oyster shells and all the work that these departments do, because I think it's important. I know it's hard to manage from the state side, but it's a very, very important tool right now. And a lot of these programs need that because there are people in the community that are like, I had no idea you could do that. They're like, I had no idea you could do something like that. And I was like, guess what? I didn't either, but now I'm going to tell everybody else that you can and give them a chance to do it too, Mm-hmm. So it's been a just absolutely amazing time of my life.
I could tell. It's so incredible. And I love the part of your story where you get into, rebuilding the oyster reef. I'm a lifelong fisherman too, that, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about my relationship with the water. I really relate to how you describe that time that when you're just alone in that environment, really feeling closer to who you are as a person and your role on the planet. And because of that, I feel super blessed to build my life around this. But I think it's so important to have kind of really broad community access to these resources, because I think that healthy relationship makes the environment healthier. So a lot of times we talk about sustainable seafood or sustainable marine environments. We think we're just talking about kind of the plant and animal environment there. But for me, it's all about too the human relationships, right? And so I am really just fascinated and encouraged by what you do, providing people, as many people as you reach, which is not a small amount, with that relationship, because I think that's how we take care of each other and the planet. But as you started doing all that stuff and you got the responses you did and the support, now you have this relationship with the Department of Natural Resources. Did you kind of feel like there's a little magic here that like this is a purpose? Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I know a secret. As I just said that. I do. I feel like I know a secret. And, and now I want to tell everybody else. Like, I mean, honestly, before I started going to the water, like, I've said this before, but I did not know what real joy was. I don't care what I told anybody, if I appeared happy and I did whatever. Now that I've really experienced this, I know what real joy is. I think it's selfish to not share that because our time here is very, very short. And, we have to, I think it can be enjoyable. And I never thought that my time here would be enjoyable. I thought I was always just going to have to struggle to make it through it. And, I just feel, even if not like financially, like where I want to be mentally, that's the richest that I've ever. I mean, I'm like swimming in it like Scrooge McDuck up here in my brain. So it's I am, and I'm like, man, I feel like I'm like floating. Like it's so unreal what I feel like, and I do feel like it's a certain bit of magic. But that's why I feel like it's important to share that.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I didn't, that you know this, Georgie knows this, but people that watch it might not. I actually got to go casual crabbing with Tia this year or last year, which was awesome. I mean, I grew up fishing in Alaska, uh, going and catching blue crabs off the dock in South Carolina. Not something I ever even knew was an option, and it was probably one of the most memorable fishing days of my life. It was
Oh,
so cool and so special. And one of the amazing things is that you lead this experience, at in the middle of a city, in the middle of an urban part of America. And I was wondering, like, could you share a little bit more about all the different kinds of people that come through there, and maybe some of the experiences that you've seen, like as you've watched people experience a new connection with the water?
yeah, absolutely. So I get moved by the experiences, but the guests get moved too, which then and comes back to me as well. Some of my most memorable things was the first place I crab on a private marina now, but the first place I was just like on a public dock. And I had this booking where it was like this brother and sister. That's all I knew, it was a brother and sister on this trip. And this is still before I even can realize like the magic and the power in what I'm doing. Because in my head, I'm still just taking people crabbing. And we go out and they're doing it. They're throwing the cast net. The brother's having so much fun. He takes his shirt off. He's just running around the dock, throwing this cast net. This guy is like sculpted too. He looks like some statue. It's crazy. And like his sister is doing it. And then she goes and takes a break for a while under the gazebo. They leave. She embraces me and they go. Few hours later, I forget where I was. I was at a restaurant. I was about to go into this local restaurant, and my phone went off. An Airbnb experience platform allows guests to give these reviews. So the review came through, and it was almost 2 pages long. And it was about how the sister had a terminal illness. And this was a trip with her and her brother to go make their last memories and how much that experience meant to them on the water. Um, Out of all the things that they had done. And that kind of stopped me in my tracks because
Yeah.
I never expected to get feedback like that, or it made me think more about what we were actually doing on the dock. That's when it kind of became more than just crabbing.
Mhm.
I've had a grown man, and I'm talking over the age of 40, a doctor from New York, said he woke up, he had a dream that he was crabbing in New York, booked a trip a week later and came to Charleston. And when he booked it, he still didn't know he was coming crabbing. But on the Airbnb experience platform, when you book an Airbnb, they will send you something about the experiences going on. So he booked a place to stay, and then this thing came through with me smiling with the crab. So he booked this experience. It ends up there's I think up to 8 or 10 people that can come, but this day just one, just him. He ends up getting a solo booking. It's me and him on the stop, and he is so moved by the experience. This is when we're on the public dock, so there's like 5 or 6 other. There was like a group of older guys that would come, like guys that would come out on this dock and hang out and drink beer and talk about football and stuff. And this man is bawling, like he is like, I feel like I'm a kid again from the experience, like taking away the 2 hours that I had with them on the dock. Like I don't know, man. Where I came from, stuff like that just don't happen.
Yeah.
So those experiences then lead to families of four coming because the people come catch the crabs. Well, then I clean the crabs on the dock, bag it up, send it home with either them to cook or they can take it to a local restaurant. Well, this family took it home, and then the dad. It always takes me back too when the guys leave the review. I don't know. That's so kind of like kind of sexist, because it's like I know dudes. My closest friends are dudes. They don't take the time to do these things, and
Yeah,
that's why it
yeah.
means more to me. Like I'm like their ladies would do it and give their point of view, but the dad writing like this really long thing about how he didn't know this was something he needed, and he's never caught and prepared food with his family, and how he will make this a point to make this a regular thing with his family because of how fulfilling it was. Um, and then people that come crabbing and then come to our volunteer events. And now they're like family, and they come and volunteer repeatedly with us. So they're like now responsible for some of these reefs. And long after we're gone, people are going to be catching crab and fish and stuff here in these locations that we're putting this trash back into. For years to come, and it's just freaking magical. It is insane.
That's amazing. I love that. I've often described being a fisherman as like being a kind of an ambassador for nature to people that
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily have that relationship. I go down to the lower 48, right, which is what we call where you guys live. And say, oh, you're a fisherman from Alaska. What is that like? People are fascinated by it. They want to hear the story. And so I love sharing the story of it. But I've been super compelled that you're able to get people to put their hands in the water. I mean, Tia, you taught me how to pick up a crab. I didn't know how to do that.
I know.
That was funny.
well,
Um,
well, you've done it, and so like that's the thing. Like you said, getting the hands on.
yeah.
Like I am a visual learner. I like the physical touch. Like I learn by doing things. Like that's when things stick in my head. So that was another thing too. When I first started crabbing, everybody was like, "Boy, I bet you're gonna stack up on tongs," and I was like, no, I'm not teaching anybody how to crab with tongs. I was like, I want to teach you how to get close to this crab, learn about this crab, learn what its mannerisms. I want you to. It's different when you can put your hands on it, and you can see that. You see that with kids. You can see it in their eyes. Like they show up and they are scared to death, and they're like, I am not touching anything.
Yeah.
And then 45 minutes into it, they're like trying to snatch everybody else's crab out of their hand, because in your head, you're going to tell yourself all the stuff's going to happen. But when you see all these different people, all these different walks of life, they look different, whatever, all doing it. I don't care who you are. Even if you were scared, you're like, okay, I can do this. All right, I bet I probably can, or whatever is going to go down in your head. You sit at home and watch something on TV, you just be like, nope, not doing that, never doing that. But when you can actually be right there and see, like, well, especially if it's a grown man, and then there's like some 8-year-old kid comes right behind him after he's shaking to death and can't do it. He's probably going to try to do it again.
I love that. Yeah. Well, and two, you put your hands on something, you learn in that way, connect to it. I think you get the importance of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know you and I both spend a lot of time talking to people about, it's important to have healthy waterways and healthy critters and all those things. And it can be hard for people to connect to the why without like really having that heart connection, that hands-on connection. That's just super cool. Thanks for doing the work that you do.
Thank you so much. I feel so grateful that I get to do the work that I do.
Yeah.
I really am. I finally am just so proud and have something to wake up and be happy for every day. I mean, not that my life was that bad, but it's like this is like bringing in a whole new thing that I've just never. It drives me. Like that's why I get up every day.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that's all the questions I have except for one more. The hardest one is, Tia, what is your favorite seafood to cook and why?
Well, that is the hardest question. my my favorite seafood to cook and why. Okay, well, it's hard because there's two. I just feel a special connection with the one that everybody expects, crab. Yes, I just have a special connection with that. But really, it's fish. And that's because it reminds me of my grandmother. Every time I cook fish, my grandmother and my mom love fish. So anytime I catch fish, it usually goes directly to them. Like I will have a cooler of fish, and everybody's like thinking I'm going home to cook. But my family is a huge Geechee family from Charleston. There is a ton of us. And so I got my mom's house and my aunt's house I got to stop to, because for me, it brings me the most. My family, we show love by feeding people and with food. So like to go share fresh fish or to cook fresh fish with or for my mom and my family. Like that's it for me.
I love that. Well, and earlier, I have to tell you mine now too,
Yeah.
because earlier this week I was thinking about what am I going to ask Tia, and so I put that in there, and I was thinking about what mine is, and it's so similar. Like I'm a salmon fisherman, right? So you think like, oh, maybe salmon's my favorite one, but no, it's razor clams for me because it was a really important part of growing up was all of us, a couple times a year going to the beach at the low tide and working really hard and digging these razor clams out of the dirt and cleaning them and cutting them and putting them up for the rest of the year. And
Hmm.
it was a big deal, and it was exhausting and exciting and fun, and that is still fried razor clams is still my very favorite because of that experience. And we haven't been able to dig them here actually for a while, and so I bought some recently and brought them home, and my partner and I cooked them up, and we were like, "Oh, this is what we've been missing." We eat seafood all the time, but that like super powerful thing that's from that childhood experience of pulling something out of the sand by yourself, that's the thing, man.
It is, man. That's what it is. It's the memory and the connection, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of the power in what I'm doing. Like I tell people when they're on the dock with me, this is like they give me compliments in ways that they don't know that they're giving me compliments. One of the main things they do is they always break out into, oh, this reminds me of, and it's a memory of like them and their dad, them and their grandparents, another time on the water, and that's when like their guards are down and they really are receiving everything that's being given to them right then at that water. So I I just love it. So much power. That's what's like it's magical, right? Because that's what we do. I
Right.
get to help facilitate that. It's so magical. So
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I really appreciate spending this time with you. I could literally talk to you about this all day long, but
I know I gotta come visit you. Then we can talk
that's
all
right.
the time.
Awesome. Well,